All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Ministry Revealed. It is, I almost said July, August 3rd, 2018. It was my mother's birthday yesterday. Unfortunately, she lives on the other side of Canada from me. So it was just a nice phone call conversation. But little shout out to my mom. Happy birthday. No, she doesn't listen because the things I teach, end time understanding and teachings, terrifies her. Yes, she's a believer. Yes, she's one of his. But being a single older woman, living by herself, she says these things just they just they freak her out, and she has trouble sleeping. So I don't talk too much about it with my mother, but she understands the times that we're in. She's watching and paying attention to the season and things happening around the world, and that's what we do at this channel as well. And we do it from Scripture. Very little do we use from outside of Scripture, but sometimes, obviously, when we're pointing to seasons or events going on, of course we will. But, excuse me, that's what today is going to be more of, guys. We know it's 2018. We know it's happening soon. We're going to tie a little bit of this in together some more. I also, before getting started, maybe I'll remind you guys at the end as well, the ministry needs your help, guys. If you have the ability to help us out, in fact, I'm going to talk about this guy, what he sent in as a comment as well. But if you have the ability to help us out, you can see in the comments here, or in the description box under a video, you can see the PayPal link here. You can just click on the PayPal link and send an offering or donation that way. You could mail us to this mailbox if you wanted to send us something, because, guys, we need your help. Not just getting out the USBs. We do have USBs, by the way. I don't have any more funds to be able to ship. You guys have been great and you've helped out. I'm asking just for your continued help for those, and just to keep us going here, because I don't do anything but study and do the Word of God now, guys. So I'm asking for your help because lights are about to be shut off. So we had to deal with some stuff with the internet last week as well, just to get better deals. And, we're scrimping and saving anywhere we can. My wife does work. It's just not enough. It doesn't cover everything. And with 10 months of not working really and just doing this, it's not easy. We've been there in the past for other reasons, but, excuse me. We would really, really appreciate your help any way you can, guys, to just whatever you can. And we're going to continue to send out, like I said, those USBs of the Operation 14 Years. That's the main purpose, right, is the Operation 14 Years. We've got some here sitting. There's people waiting for them as well. I just don't have the money it takes to ship these all out. Being in Canada and shipping most of this stuff as package and parcel to the U.S., I just don't have it, right? We don't have even enough to cover all of our bills. So your help would be appreciated, and we will be able to just continue blazing forward, whether we have a couple weeks or a month or so, whatever that time is. Your help is appreciated. All right, guys. Excuse me. So let's get into this. I like this comment. Thank you, John, for sending this in. After watching the last video, he says, hey, wait a second here. Let's look at this. And we're going to I just wanted to show you this comment. Give me a second. Sorry, I just took a text. I thought my son needed a ride, but he said he's going to walk home. So, all right, so I wanted to share this. I thought it was really interesting, the insight that John had here. Just this first part I wanted to share with you. We spoke about in the last video how the numbers added up. Now that we understand the truth about the Feast of Weeks, and then getting to Pentecost, that it's 49 plus 50 days, it's a total of 99 days. When we understand that it was an Adar year from last year, like before spring, that when we do this calculation, we end up, it's not a complicated calculation, but it gets us, it's Leviticus 23, it gets us to August 13th of this year. And I had taught in previous videos a few months ago about this sign of Jonah that Jesus says in Luke. The sign of Jonah is going to be a 40-day sign. It's going to be the sign of the Son of Man. It's going to be, he is going to be the sign. And then in Mark, it doesn't say anything. And then Matthew, it says there's going to be no sign. And then Matthew, it says the 3-day sign. which means knowing on this channel who the books are speaking to, that Luke is to the bride, that Mark is to the church that was remaining, and that Matthew is to Judah, we know that then it's trying to tell us something that's going to apply before the time of the bride going. All right, it's going to be part of it. And I left it in the background for a long time because I just couldn't see where a 40-day count was going to fit. We talked about it a little bit maybe with Billy Graham's death. And, you know, again, Billy Graham died, he was 99. Abraham got his son 99, right? So conceived. So, you know, I couldn't understand where Jonah's number would fit. And when we did this count in the previous video and realized for sure that it was from the crescent of the new moon and not the full moon, it came to August 13th. We add 40 days from the 14th, right, the next day. We add 40 days, and we get to September 23rd. 1 year from the quote-unquote, I don't claim that it was the sign. I believe, and I've said for a long time, that it could be the sign, like it was like the precursor. You know, a wake-up for us is what it could have been. To get those that were his, to start watching. I know that was a big thing for me. It started before, but really for me, like I said, for me in my ministry, when I knew the Spirit was leading me here on this channel, it started for me on September 8th, 2017. So, and it happened for a lot of people. I know our brother in Christ, Jimmy, out in Montreal, for him, it happened, I think it was late September, and there was somebody else I was talking to, it was October, and a lot of people that are on this channel, it started give or take around a year ago, or give or take around September. You know, a little bit before, a little bit after that, things really started happening. So I'm not dismissing that sign. I just don't believe it was the actual visible wow sign that is still to come. But I believe it was a precursor sign, like for those that were to be watching. All right? So when we take this August 13th, we add the Jonah count, which we'll talk about a little bit later, to show it in Matthew, Mark, and Luke and the differences in it. Jonah's count gets us to September 23rd, exactly 1 year from the September 23rd sign, which Matthew and Mark also say that they were sleeping for 1 hour. Jesus gives them trouble because they couldn't stay awake for 1 hour. 1 hour in our understanding is 1 year. Luke is not giving given that trouble for having slept for 1 hour. It's not found in Luke, all right? It's only in Mark and Matthew. Hence, again, Luke being the brides who he's talking to and them going. So let's look at what he says here. On August 13th, the sign of Jonah happens. Okay? The name Jonah, by the way, also means dove. Isn't that interesting? We're realizing where this count goes, and Jonah means dove. The dove is a symbol of what? Peace. And what are we waiting for, guys? We're waiting for this peace plan, this peace deal to come out. A dove is symbolized by peace. The 40-day count, if this is the proper time, which I believe this is it, the 40-day count will begin on the 14th the next day. Could that be the peace sign, the peace plan? You know, give or take a couple of days with these understandings to get to where it is on the actual day of September 23rd, to wherever that full moon falls compared to, you know, the sign and so forth. But the number count will be exact. And the dove, like I was saying, means peace. And he's saying, what if on the 13th is when they come out, 13th, maybe the 14th, they come out with the peace plan and make it public, right? And then this is the 40 days from August 13th to the 23rd. It'll be a very turbulent time. And the number 40 means a time of trial and testing, right? When the devil tempted Jesus for 40 days and 40 nights, right? When does this year, the UN, United Nations this year, we talked about it in the past, that it's right now, it's always the day of peace, but this year, this past year, since September 21st, 2017, it's been the year of peace and safety. We all went crazy talking about that last year. And this year, it'll be peace and something for everybody, or something along those lines. That's why I believe this is going to happen before their changeover to the next one for everybody on September 21st through the UN. So I just thought this was really interesting, and I wanted to share it with you. And we'll touch some more on some things with Jonah as we go through to explain to you guys what I'm talking about, why we see it spoken of 3 different times. And when most people read it, they think it's just the same story, and it, you know, the sign of Jonah and the sign of Jonah. No, there was 2 signs relating to Jonah. Not the signs that before he arrived, but that Jonah was a sign. And what happened to Jonah earlier in relation to Matthew was a sign, right? There are 2 relations there to a sign and and Jonah. All right. So let's let me show you guys something. In fact, this is what I wanted to show you guys. So in the last video, this was something I wanted to show you guys, but I got, of course, in my usual ranting, or not ranting, but in my usual teaching, and I kind of get off track sometimes, when we said the 21 years, right? The 21 years we understand from Jacob in Genesis 29, right? Total of 21 years. He worked 14 for 2 wives. The first 7 years were easy, and then the next 7 years, it says he just worked them, and then he did 7 more years for the cattle and so forth. It's 21 years total. And John gives us the total 21 years. And the reason I was going to show this last time is in relation to what I'm going to show you here, just to throw this in at the beginning before we really get going, to show you something in Ezekiel 40. Because what do we know about the year 2025? I've showed it, we've gone through it many, many times. In the year 2025, which is, again, Zechariah is 2018, 2019, and goes to 2031. It's the last 14 years of John's 21 years. All right? This is 2011. I believe it's also from spring to spring. That really just got changed on us a few hundred years ago. Prior to that, it was always from spring to spring. So I believe it's from spring to spring, and we had 2011, and it goes right to 2031, again, into the early part of 2032. All right, the last 21 years, and that would make, this is 2018, and 2024. We've talked about it before, and you could see things that relate to the rapture, their place is prepared for them. You can see the 144,000 being given their abilities and so forth. And that 2025 is the year when the Lord is returning to Mount Zion, not to the Mount of Olives, but to Mount Zion. And here is 2018, your last 14 years to 2031, also found in Zechariah. Hosea is the same. I believe Hosea is speaking more so like to the Gentiles, and Zechariah is to Judah. Zechariah starts with giving us the season, lets us know these things in order that we've seen happen since the beginning of 2018, all in order, right to the 70 years. And we're now here where the Lord is jealous and he's upset. Well, I've been showing that the year 2025, here is chapter 18, is when the Lord returns to Mount Zion, right? Returns to the high mountain, Mount Zion, and they're going to start rebuilding the city and the streets, like Daniel also talks about, for 3.5 years, till 2028. The foundation is already laid because that happened the year earlier with the 144,000 before they were sent out. Okay? So watch this now in Ezekiel, because we have 21 years total. We know that in the year 2025, it'll be 14 years in. All right? 14 years from 2011 to 2025, it's 14 years in. The rapture has taken place, and it'll be beginning of the 15th year, which is still in the 14th year, all right, at the beginning of it. So you have 2025, 14 years in. Watch Ezekiel. Where is he? Oops, right there. Watch Ezekiel 40. This is something I wanted to throw in at the last video, like I said, and I kind of went off a little bit as I was explaining this this diagram here, or the number count. Look at how it starts. In the 25th year of our captivity, 2025, in the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was smitten. 25th year, 14th year. What would the 25th year, 14th year be? 2025, 14 years into it. 14 years have passed. They're now in the 15th, but 14 years in the year 2025. You see that? So if it's really talking about that, and we've covered numbers and year counts like this from Ezekiel and Hosea, we've done it in a number of them. They're trying to tell us something. They're always, of course, it's in the Word. It's trying to tell us something. The year 2025, in the 14th year since it's begun, and what should they be doing if it's the year 2025? In the visions of God, brought me into the land of Israel and set me upon a very high mountain. Did we just see that in Zechariah 8, which is the year 2025? The Lord is now on the mountain, on Mount Zion, by which was as the frame of a city to the south. And then it talks about a measuring rod and so forth, and the gates, and they're building it. When? In the year 2025, in the 14th year, since the 21 final years have begun. Excuse me. The Bible's a countdown, guys. It's a clock. We're in 2018. There's 6.5 or so years to go before the rapture in 2024. But there's an escape of the bride literally about to happen within, what are we going to see in August? On the, 13th or so, or 14th? I don't know what that's going to look like, but we're going to go through some things here today to try to get an idea. We're going to look to see what about the word vanish? Right? We know that it's within the word escape, but what about the word vanishing? Well, I don't know if you guys have ever looked it up, or if you've seen it in a video I spoke about a long time ago, but the word vanish is only once in the entire New Testament. And it's exactly where you think it should be. It's in Luke. I recommend everybody, we're going to go into Luke 21, and we're going to go into some word definitions of the things that shall come to pass first that the bride is going to be here for. There's a whole teaching we can do on the phrase "come to pass," and there's another one too, shall be, or there's another one, but we're not going to touch on it. Just wanted to throw that in because we might do a little touch in one relation to it, but don't worry about that right now. I was going off on one of my tangents there. So one thing I would recommend is everybody go and read the last chapter of Luke, the last chapter of Mark, and the last chapter of Matthew. There's a reason. Once you understand that Luke is to the bride, Mark is to the rest of the church that remained, and that Matthew is to Judah, and you read those last chapters each, understanding those things and understanding the little differences that happen. Like, in Luke, they see two men standing there with shining garments. In Mark, it's a young man standing there in a white robe. And in Matthew, it's something else. Why do you think the same story being told is different in all three? I was trying to get that across with people in a discussion on another channel as well. There's a reason. It's because they're speaking to different groups. That's the entire reason. What you have to do from there is understand, now that you understand who they're speaking to, what are they saying because of those differences in those explanations. All right? So it's worth it. It is so worth it. So now let's go into this teaching for today, which I just thought this was pretty cool, isn't it? In the year 2025, which is the 14th year since the 21 years began, they should be building, and here they are. The Lord is on a high mountain. He takes them to a high mountain, and the frame of the city's done. It's perfect. It is exactly correct to the timeline that I've been talking about forever. Well, forever. I've only been doing it for about 10, 11 months now, but seems like a long, long time, right? 2050 or 2025, 14 years in the year 2025 on a high mountain because the Lord has returned to Zion and they're starting to rebuild the city. I mean, come on. It's perfect. All right. So let's look here at where we're at today because this is going to go into some of the last video and what we started talking about here with Jonah as well and what we're supposed to see, or not what we're supposed to see, but what we are going to see before this all begins, or once it all kicks off and begins. What is this commotions and what is this be not terrified? All right, we're going to cover that. We're going to go look at the word for commotions, the word for be not terrified, and see where this takes us. And even the word come to pass, if you do a study on come to pass, but do a search on the phrase come to pass, but only do a search, or sorry, when you do your search, focus in on the three discourses, right? Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, and see how it relates to it. And it's a whole study on its own. It's amazing. But so let's get into it here. The word commotions. Let's go to my favorite eSword program that you guys all know. Again, I'm going to keep promoting this till it's time to go, guys, or until we go. Because here's the thing. When Bibles are going to be taken away and burnt, when the internet is shut down and they don't allow any of this stuff anymore, if you've downloaded this program to your phone or your tablet or whatever it may be, and power and everything is taken out, but you've either got a crank radio for power or a crank power source or some sort of generator, you can have the word with you regardless. Like I said, we've prepped food and water and some personal supplies and just different things for the washroom, and as well as a radio, a crank radio, all sorts of things, right? Do I believe it's for me and my family? No. I believe I'm leaving it for others who are going to find it. And within it, we've also got what we've talked about before, those USB teachings. We've got 20 of these things throughout the house within the food and so forth, within these teachings, with our timeline in them, with a Bible, right? Old and New Testament together, King James Bible, with all of them throughout this stuff for people to have. All right? I haven't talked about that in a while, and I think it's worth everybody doing, as well as downloading this program called eSword so you can have it with you. All right? So let's go into now Luke 21, and this is something that the bride is going to be here for. All right? The bride is going to be here just for this part here. This is going to be the beginning that we're here for. And then you can see here, then said he unto them. So Luke is saying, then Jesus said unto them. Who's he saying it to? It's as if Luke is overhearing what Jesus said to Mark and to Matthew. Not for his bride. Excuse me, he's talking to his bride and letting them know what's going to happen to these two groups. That you don't want to be a part of it. Okay? And there's so much more. You can watch previous videos that talk about it. But let's go into the words here today for the stuff that the bride is still going to be here for. All right? Just this beginning stuff. Let's see the word commotions. The word commotions means instability, disorder, tumult, right? Like tumultuous time. Well, now let's go look at the word tumultuous. Let's have definition of the word and let's see what it means. A loud, confused noise, clamor, babble, right? Because it's loud noises, turmoil, confusion, disorder, chaos, havoc, trouble, mayhem, turbulence. This, I believe, is what it's telling us. The bride is going to be here to experience this, right? You shall hear of wars and of commotions, loud noises, turbulent times. Something has happened. And I believe this is the stuff at the peace deal. This is what's going to happen, what's going to come to pass first that we're going to see. But now watch this. Watch this. Let me see where we were going here. Because this tumultuous time, let's see where else this leads to, right? The uproar, the craziness. let's go to Isaiah. This isn't one we talk about too much, but let's go to Isaiah 66, verse 6. Okay? This is them saying, oh, you guys aren't nothing's gonna happen. Let the Lord be glorified. But he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed. A voice of noise from the city. A voice of noise, uproar, horrible noise, pomp, rushing, tumult. A tumultuous uproar of noise. That's what we were just looking at here. See, it means tumultuous. Where is it? There was uproar. Where was it? A loud noise, uproar, tumultuous. It's the same thing being spoken of here. Now watch the connection. A voice of noise from the city, a voice from the temple, a voice of the Lord that rendereth recompense to his enemies. Well, watch this. I go to Psalms 18 all the time. Psalms 18 as well as Psalms 118 carry them forward for 2018 to 2031, 32. 18 forward does it, and 118 forward does it as well. They're from different points of view within that same year. And look what happens here in Psalms 18. Look what's happening. There was tumultuous times, right? There's an uproar. There's sorrows. The enemy is compassing them, the bride. And in my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried unto God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even unto his ears. And then what does he do? The earth shook and trembled. The foundations and the hills moved and were shaken because he was wroth. Remember we talked about this before? Where do we see his wrothness? Not the wrath. It's like a type of wrath, but it's not his wrath. That's the bowls. That's much, much later. But he's just very, very angry. We have it in Zechariah 1. Right after the talk of the 70 years and the things that have happened since January. And what is he? I am very sore displeased. He's wroth. Right? And out of his rage, look, burst forth, crack off in his rage, in his anger. Right? Because he's wroth. See, provoke to wrath. He's not in wrath, that's the bulls, but he's very ticked. That's what's being spoken about. Even right here to 118, it's the same. Psalms 18. Psalms 18 is Zechariah 1, is Psalms 118. All with different perspectives, all within the same year, giving us different points of view. It is Hosea 1. But Hosea 1, that portion for Hosea hasn't begun yet. Hosea 1, remember Hosea 1, right off the bat, it's beautiful. Verse 2, and the Lord said to Hosea, who is Hosea? The deliverer, Hosea, right? Yeshua, right? Jesus. Hosea, go take unto thee a wife. Who is the whoredom wife? Us, the Gentiles. Those who get to be first, because we were second, we got to be first because we accepted him. Right? He's going to get his wife right there in Hosea 1, 2018. All these are 2018. This part for Hosea, for the bride, hasn't happened yet, but it's about to. Hosea is about to kick off. All right, so we've got the very sore displeased. Let's go back to Psalms 118. All right, and then we saw that piece right to where he was wroth. But he hears from a voice from the temple. He hears the voice, and then he comes out, and then he starts shaking the earth and so forth. Well, when we go back into Isaiah 66, look at the progression of what happens next. A voice from the Lord that rendereth recompense to his enemies. And look what comes next. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Ring a bell? the bride goes before her travailing. A lot of people like to skip over Revelation 12:2 because they don't understand it. This is the travailing. Prior to this travailing, the bride is gone. Is this going to be the sign that's going to happen? Is this sign going to be, the August 13th time frame that we might see first? Or is this sign the actual sign of the wow, right? Like I said, September 23rd, if that was the 1 year warning, that was the warning one for everybody that are his to start watching and to start sharing with people to watch. I believe that this September 23rd, being the 40-day count, that this is going to be that sign, because look at what it says. To gaze, that is with wide open eyes at something remarkable. This was not just some computer screen looking. That computer screen looking and maybe being able to see it, if you understood the sun, moon, and stars when there was the eclipse, you could have seen some of it. However, the real one, which is to gaze at something remarkable, that says, denotes not, differing from this one, which means simply voluntary observation or merely mechanical, passive, casual vision. This is what we saw, casual, voluntary, on our computer screens. What's coming, which could be the thing for September 23rd, is this actual Revelation 12:1 sign. What is that going to look like? Again, I don't know. I mean, we've got a description, right? We had an idea. We've been given the first view of it for those who were to be watching, right? They're not going to be given the trouble that Mark's group and Matthew's group are both given when Jesus went up the hill to pray for 1 hour, and then he came down and they were both asleep. In Matthew's group, they got trouble because Jesus says you couldn't wait 1 hour. And then in Mark, he said the same thing. What, you couldn't wait 1 hour? Right? Both of them, their spirits were willing, but their flesh was weak. We covered this before. You don't find that passage in Luke's. Why? Because on September 23rd, 2017, we were watching. And we've got a year to be watching. Could this be what then happens, which transpires, that we're going to see on September 23rd, 2018? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you must watch my previous video, because it relates to tabernacles, to booths, which relates to the dove, which relates to Jonah, right? I believe that this could be what comes 1 year, and it's on the Feast of Tabernacles. Perfectly in line, guys. It falls bang on the number with the booths. I mean, guys, you have to watch the previous video if you haven't, all right? So could that be the sign? Well, again, when we look at Isaiah 66 talking about this noise and him coming to bring out a recompense against them, what comes next? Before she travails, she brings forth. This is the bride. All right? It's amazing, amazing. These connections, I don't know what I'm going to be calling this video yet, but something to do with dots, I'm sure, connecting dots. All right? And we took this to 18. But now watch this. What's the next piece that we're looking for here in Luke? All these things that we've covered, all this part so far that we covered, had to do with the word commotions, right? It had to do with tumult, for tumultuous and instability and disorder. I believe this is what could be coming here. Like he said, if this is going to be the peace sign that comes about around August 13th, give or take a day, right? This could be that commotions, that tumultuous time, the uproar that comes all over the world, right? It means that, right? An uproar, chaos, turbulence. What do you think happens? If it was chaotic and people uproaring around the world because of Trump and these things with him being elected and so forth, what do you think's going to happen when the peace deal comes about? Do you understand? This peace deal, guys, doesn't bring in the building of the new temple yet. brings the destruction of Jerusalem. Right? Why does Daniel say they're going to be rebuilding? Why are they to restore and to build Jerusalem? Why would they be restoring and rebuilding it if it wasn't destroyed? Right? We saw that. We've covered that many, many times in Zechariah as well. I'm trying to think of where it was where we were talking about it. Those 70 years in 2024. Right? Again, so we have 70 years in Zechariah 1 for 2018 because it's the anniversary. And yet here we are in 2024 for chapter 7. And look at what he says. You know, when you fasted and when you mourned in the 5th and 7th months, even those 70 years. What? He's relating back to those 70 years that you had from 1948 to 2018. During all that time, were you fasting and were you mourning? Were you doing these things for me or were you just doing them for yourselves? He says you were doing them for yourselves. And during all those 70 years, when Jerusalem was inhabited and in prosperity, Jerusalem is currently inhabited, is currently in prosperity and has been for a while. But when does it end? The 70th year. And he's talking to them as if back here, telling them, hey, all those 70 years back here, did you guys do any of this stuff for me or were you just doing it for yourselves? When you guys were inhabited and in prosperity. Right? He's giving them heck because he's saying you guys were just doing it for yourselves. And then what happens here? Boom. They start rebuilding. In the year 2025. It'll start in 2024, but it'll be the foundation with the 144,000, and then they'll be rebuilding in 2025. Right? Jerusalem is about to get destroyed. This piece that, when this comes out, sorry, I'm just trying to get back to where I was. This piece that's about to come out is going to cause an uproar and commotions and havoc and turmoil and disorder. And there's going to be people yelling and screaming all over the place. And it's going to bring the destruction of Jerusalem. Trump and everybody thinks they're doing a great thing. And I'm sorry, but I agree. They are, because it's in God's timing. It's in his perfect timing. Perfect. And for all those that don't understand 14 years, you can never understand because Jesus says he's returning to Mount of Olives 2,000 years later, right? After 2 days. After 2 days. Well, if he died in the year, give or take 31, when is he going to return to the Mount of Olives? 2,000 years later is 2031. You take 7 years off of that, you're only in the year 2024. Remember, always spring to spring. Which means, if it was only 7 years, we still got some time to go. There's nothing coming. But we know better than that, don't we? And why does everybody and these prophets and people that are having visions and dreams, and we know that it's the season that it's about to happen? Because they're all Gentiles. We're all Gentiles. Those first 7 years of seals is the time of the Gentiles. When the time of the Gentiles ends with the rapture in 2024, it'll return to the time of Judah. It'll be the time of the Jews and their time of testing, which is going to be the time of trumpets. You see that? Now, are they taking part in seals as well? Yes, absolutely. The whole world is going to be taking part that's here. It says the whole earth is going to take part. And what we're waiting to hear and see is the kickoff of peace. And we may have just found it. Right? This past week or so. Mid-ish August, right around August 13th, we'll be left here for 40 days during some of this tumultuous time. Right? It lines up with Psalms 18, with the fact that we're going to have to go through some of this stuff and we're going to have enemies around us. But it's going to be a time as well. These 40 days are going to be a time for us to share with other people, to let them know, guys, now is the time. It's the time. Wake up. The Bible was telling us these things. But do I think that something is going to come over us? We're going to see something maybe for those that are His, that are ready. Are we going to see something on the 13th? 13th, 14th? I believe so. I don't believe we necessarily go on the 13th or 14th, which is going to be the Pentecost. Might we go? And might us going, is that part of the Revelation 12 sign, the part 1? It's possible. But when we go and look at the other things here that we'll cover here in a little bit, the Lord usually gives a time, right? You have some time to come to the Lord. We'll be able to tell some people what's going on, even during however tumultuous it is. And there's going to be many people coming against us during that time, right? But He always gives people a chance. But that chance will end after those 40 days. And we'll cover that a little bit more in a sec. But now let's go to the next piece here, which is in Luke 21. Again, let's go to the second word that the bride is still going to be here for. So we've covered commotions. We've covered that. But what about be not terrified? This is very, very, very interesting. I thought for a long time that this be not terrified had to do with maybe what we're going to see coming down from the sky, if something's coming down, or, I didn't really know, but I thought maybe that's what it was, because what else is going to make us terrified, right? When we were down here and we see men's hearts failing them for those things that are coming upon the earth, I know now that this isn't that. This is relating to those that are still here. This is relating because, like we said, when He's explaining these things, He says, then He said unto them. When we go further down here, we see, and He spake to them a parable. Luke jumps in to say this stuff is for those who are left, those who remained. All right? And this is going to do with the sixth seal, right? Looking after those things for fear, looking after those things which are coming on the earth. And look at what that means, to supervene, to impend, to attack. Guys, you don't want to accept Jesus Christ now. For those of you who don't, I pray for you. I pray the Lord will reveal the truth of His Son over you, because what you're in for, you won't be ready for. No man will. What if this is some sort of quote-unquote alien through the fallen angels when they come down and it's some sort of alien thing? That's the deception. That's the deception of what's coming, that it's going to be quote-unquote aliens. No, it's going to be the enemy. And people are going to be fooled into it. That's what this one is talking about. Not what this is talking about here. Let's see what this terrified... Let's see what this terrified is all about. Guys, I use this program, eSword. I study only from it. The only reason I use Bible Gateway is so that I can make little notes so in case I get lost along the way, because I'm covering so many things. That's the only reason. I always use eSword, but I forget to sometimes go in and look and decipher these words, and sometimes the understanding isn't given to me right away. Well, watch this. I decided, let's have a look at the word terrified. Look at how many times the word terrified shows up. It's only twice. Now pay attention. Through the idea of causing to fall or causing to fly away. Causing to fall, why? Because there's going to be people that are going to be terrified and not know what to think that might fall away. And there's others that are going to be found accounted worthy, who are going to be strengthened, and they're going to be quote-unquote fly away. Now, this isn't the fly away later, right? It's just to give an example to say, through the idea of causing to fall or through the idea of causing to fly away, right? To be taken away. So now, let's see where this shows up twice. There it is, Luke 21:9, where we just were. But look at this, Luke 24:37. Luke 24, like I said, the last chapter of Luke, Mark, and Matthew everybody should read with the understanding that it's speaking to the bride, to the church that remained, and to Matthew for Judah. All right? We can even say, when I say the church and the church that remained, Israel. All right? Israel, Judah. Luke is part of the church. She was just the one ready, watching, prepared. The first fruits, the 10% of the church that gets to go first. Right? Greater reward because they were watching and praying, spending time with him. They were repentant, right? Watching for him. But now let's go to see where the other word terrified is that only shows up twice. Let's go to 24:37. I'm flying through because there's other things in there that I want to show you guys too. Now watch this. Let's start in verse 36. And as they thus spake, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them and said unto them, look at that, eh? I just caught this before starting the video. Peace be unto you. And they were what? Terrified. But they were terrified and affrighted and supposed they had seen a spirit. Why are you troubled? And so on and so forth, it says, right? The word terrified shows up here when Jesus shows up in front of them. They think they had seen a spirit, and he says, what? Peace be unto you. And where do we find this? First of the two, something that the bride is going to be a part of, that's going to come first. So it's not terrified of these events and so much of things going on the earth. It's terrified because of what is going to show up. It's terrified because there's going to be some sort of maybe angels, right? Angels of the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord that's going to come down to us, those that are his, and say, peace be unto you. Is this what's coming on the 13th? As the peace agreement comes out, we're being told peace, and we're going to be terrified? Or is this what we're going to see on the September 23rd time frame, when the bride is going to be removed? Like I said, is the bride going on the 13th? Is she part of it then? Or is that when we're here for the 40 days, and then we're taken out at tabernacles, which is also described in Matthew, Mark, Luke? Is spoken about by Jonah after the 40 days. And who's Jonah? Jonah means dove. The dove is peace. Remember at the beginning of the video? The dove means peace, peace agreement. And the bride is still here, right? These things must first come to pass. So the bride is being terrified because of what? What she sees. Because remember, I said, go take your time and look at the last chapter of Matthew, Mark, Luke, right? And you'll see that they're all spoken of slightly different. And what do we have here in Luke's? When they went to see, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. Is that why we're going to be suddenly terrified? Guys, let's face it, what's it going to be like? What are we going to see? Why only in Mark's discourse is the word terrified used? Why would the bride be made terrified because of these things coming upon the earth? Generally, in an overall sense, the bride is looking to go home, aren't we, guys? We want to get out of here. So if that's the case, if there was a nuclear blast, I think we'd be running to it, right? I'm sorry, but life is okay. I've got a beautiful, great family, but let's get in the car and let's go to the blast, right? I mean, I want to go home. I know you guys too that are listening that understand what's coming. Right? So why is this terrified not in Mark's discourse? Look, it's not there. You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, but be not troubled. It's not the same word. clamor, to wail. See, it's different. Matthew's is different as well. Wars and rumors of wars. Wars and rumors of wars, but be not troubled. See, why are these guys spoken about the same way in Matthew and Mark? Because these guys aren't going to experience the same thing that Luke's group here is about to experience with what makes them terrified. It's going to be some sort of appearance of a spirit that is going to come to the bride. Does this come on the 13th or by September at Tabernacles? I'm not sure. Maybe this is what comes first, the commotion of everything, and then this comes to us afterwards. All right, I'm not sure what the order or how that's going to play out exactly, but something along those lines. This is what's coming for us. And now we could see the tumultuous. We can understand the commotions. We can understand the terrified. The terrified is linked to the Spirit of the Lord appearing to the bride. Hence, only being spoken about in Luke's discourse. All right? But now, what comes next, again, going back into Luke's final chapter, in Luke 24, look at what we find here. I'm not going to go through all these things, but look what happens here only in Luke. Look at this word vanished. One time. So in the entire New Testament, in all the Greek, the word vanished is used one time, and it's exactly where it should be in Luke's gospel, because it's for the bride. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. Right? And again, even this one here, this just means the same as up here. Came to pass or come to pass. If we go to Luke 21, come to pass and vanished, right? I was talking to you guys about come to pass before. Let's go to 21:36. Look what happens. 21:36. Watch you therefore and pray always that you may be accounted worthy to escape. Go to the definition of the word. Look. Vanish. Vanish. To vanish from all these things that shall what? There it is. Come to pass. The bride is this group that will vanish. It relates to the translated as well that we'll touch on here real quick as we go into Jonah, and I'll finish up with that. Right? So the word vanish only found once in the entire New Testament, probably in the entire Bible, and it's in Luke for the bride. All right? When, like I said, you keep going and you guys study for yourselves these last chapters with the insight of the bride and the church that remained and Judah, and you'll see it all for yourselves. Look at this, guys. This is so crazy. What I think I touched on in a previous video. But what do we do on this channel? Where does so much of the revelation of the end time understanding come from? Of course, in the Gospels, which we're in here in Luke. But look what it says. And he said unto them, these are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the laws of Moses. We've been talking about that, haven't we? The laws of Moses and the feasts and Levitical law and so forth. And the prophets. We've been doing that for a few months now, going especially into the old prophets and a little bit of the major ones here as well, the minor and the major ones. And in Psalms, he says, concerning me, where have we spent our time today? I didn't plan on this. We spent our time in Psalms, in Ezekiel, in Daniel, Hosea, Zechariah. Exactly what he says here. Then opened he their understanding that they might understand the scriptures. See, there's my goosebumps. Guys, that's what this channel is. Here's Ministry Revealed. Keep watching, guys. Let's keep this going until it's time to go, and let's keep sharing and spreading the word. All right? And that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among the nations, beginning at Jerusalem. Well, watch this. And behold, I will send you the promise of my Father. That's when we go. Look at right here. This is so key. Here we are at the end of Luke. We'll look quickly at the end of Mark and the end of Matthew, just real quick. Only in Luke's group are they, see, when Jesus departed from them, he was carried away. We covered this a long time ago, right? But he was carried away, to take up, to carry, right? He was carried away. When we go into Mark, look at what Mark says. Oh yeah, and then it says they were continually, right? I just want to cover that real quick. And then afterwards, they were continually in the temple praising and blessing God. There's your bride. The bride is going to be carried away like a bride is, and we're going to be praising and blessing God in the temple. That's how it's going to begin. When we go to Mark, we go to the last chapter of Mark. In Mark, it's not carried away. In Mark's group, they're received up. Well, who gets received up? Guests get received, don't they? Because when the rapture happens, they're invited to the wedding, right? The bride was already set away for 7 years, for a week, for 7 days, right? 7 years. Now, when we go to Matthew, look at Matthew. This is so awesome. It's all right here, just in the last chapter. You don't find any of it. There's no carrying away. There's no receiving up. There's none of it. It's the Lord that says, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even until the end of the world. Because he's going to be here with them till the end of the 1,000 years, when the earth will then be done and New Jerusalem comes down. See that? Completely different, because this is to Judah. All right? So now, when we see here, because we're talking about the bride, right? We're talking about being, where are we? Being carried away, carried up. Well, now let's take it a little bit further. Let's go into Hebrews 11, and we'll see how this ties in with what we're talking about. With being received, where are you? Hebrews 11, we'll tie it into Enoch, right? Because what happened with Enoch? By faith, Enoch was what? Translated. Carry over. Change. Removed. See, there's no received here of anything. He was carried over. Now why? See, that he should not see death. Because those that are alive are not going to see death. It's going to happen to the people that have remained as well. We saw that in 1 Thessalonians, right? In 1 Thessalonians 4, it's people looking for the rapture. I'm telling you, you don't want to be waiting for the rapture if you have a chance to go now, right? Be part of the bride, right? Repent. Watch, pray, spend time in his word. Don't take everything that I'm doing and that I'm showing here for what I'm saying. Go look at it for yourselves. Don't just fly through the video, study it. And your mind is going to expand in understanding, and do it with a program like eSword so that you can get word definitions. All right? You can travel, you can travel the roots of the words, right? Guys, the time is up, just about up. It is going to begin in 2018, and we are right at the tail end. All right? So we have translated, meaning the same thing as carry over or carried up. Now why, check this out. This is awesome. Why was Enoch translated? Right? Because God had translated him, for before his translation, he had this testimony, that he pleased God. Watch this. To gratify entirely comes from this word. See, this is why this program is important. It comes from G2101, which means fully agreeable. We can go follow this all the way. Agreeable, pleasing, well, good. Well, watch this. Again, it all ties in, guys, to the same things we've been talking about. Psalms 18. Watch this. Psalms 18. Remember, he was translated because he was found pleasing to the Lord. We've covered this many, many times. All right, in my distress, and the Lord was wroth. I mean, all these things tie into 118. This is the stuff that's about to take place. Okay? It's about to take place, but watch this. What happens to this group? He delivered me, right? He snatched me away. He rescued me, escaped me out from my strong enemy, from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in that day. Verse 19. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me, right? He delivered me because what? Because he delighted me. The Lord rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanliness of my hands. There's a whole video I did on the cleanness of hands. For those who haven't watched it, go and look for it. It's an amazing teaching. Guys, I can't figure this stuff out by myself. I always say I am simply a mouthpiece. I am a mouthpiece that the Holy Spirit is speaking through. And sometimes my mouth comes out and I'm trying to figure out things. But when these things are being put together like this, it is the Spirit using this mouth to explain it and reveal it to everybody who will listen, who have ears to listen, eyes to see, and a heart to receive it. All right? Why? Look at this. Because he delighted in me. To be pleased, be well pleased, have pleasure. It's exactly the same thing. And what's this talking about with Enoch? The bride being translated. Why? Because he was pleased with them. That's why he got to be carried away. Want to see another example? Others have been talking about this just recently. Look at Colossians 1. Look what happens for those who were made worthy. Watch this. He hath delivered us from the power of darkness and has translated us. Oh, what does it mean? To carry away. You see that? This is what's coming, guys. We're about to be vanished out of here. Vanished. That's what you're finding here. Now, is there going to be another vanishing when the rapture comes? Yeah, that's going to be a different type. But it's not the carried away type. It's not the escape one. All right? The rapture is different. The bride is not getting these different bodies. Okay? Now watch this. Let's go. Which part was this? Oh, so now let's go into what I was talking about in relation now to Jonah. Okay? Jonah, just to cover it, we're almost done. Just to cover it here, Jonah, again, where are we going? In the Minor Prophets. Jonah means what? Jonah means dove. Look, comes from this word, same as a dove. Jonah's name means dove. So, is it possible with dove, and a dove is peace, that we're looking for this peace sign like we were talking about, and then we've got this 40 days. Now people say, oh, there is no 40 days. Jonah's sign was the belly of the fish. No. Again, we must pay attention to the wording. It is spoken of differently in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Look at Luke 11. Watch this. I think it's Luke 11. Yeah, right here. 11:29. Look at what this sign of Jonah is spoken about in Luke to the bride. This is an evil generation. They seek a sign, and there shall no sign be given it, but the sign of Jonah the prophet. Which part? Right here. For as Jonah was a sign, Jonah himself was a sign unto Nineveh. What kind of sign was Jonah to Nineveh? He was a 40-day sign. They had 40 days to repent, right? They were given 40 days. And so they all repented. The king had everybody, their animals, nobody to do anything. And boom, the whole of Nineveh repented. All right? But they were given 40 days. So Jonah was this 40-day sign. It says, so shall the Son of Man be to this generation. So what is the sign? See, so shall the Son of Man. So the Son of Man is going to be a 40-day sign for us. What is that's what I'm saying. Is this what we're looking at? Is this the sign of the Son of Man that we're going to see? And if it's a 40-day sign, then this is what we're going to see August 13th, 14th. Who's going to see it? Is everybody going to see it? Is just the bride going to see it? I don't know. Remember, Jonah also means peace. Is it relating to the peace agreement coming on the 13th or 14th? See what I'm saying? Is it the first seal, where he's going to come and he's conquering to conquer, to get victory, it means, right? To get victory, to prevail, to overcome, to get victory. Victory is found only once, I believe, where is it? Victory is found right here. 1 John 5. Well, check this out. Let's go to 1 John. Watch this. Give me a second here. But watch what happens here. We're going in this guy's countdown calendar, Bible countdown calendar. And let's go to the reference for the year. And again, I don't generally look at what he has added here. I like to go with the count. But there's a 100-year, just like Psalms 18 to Psalms 118. There is a 1-year gap that you can follow the same thing. All right? So let's go to 1 John. One more. All right? Where were we? 1 John 5 is the year 17, and then 2 John 1. And you can see Psalms 117, Psalms 118. Let's see what happens here. We're in 1 John 5, which would have started then already in 2017. And we have what? Victory that overcomes the world. Victory. This word victory is only found once. Right here. And it began in 2017. So, it's good that we look at this, because I was thinking, is it possible that this white horse thing is what we're going to be looking at? No. It appears, I'm saying it appears, that this white horse that goes out conquering and to conquer to get victory, which is only found once, is connected to 2017 and could be the Revelation 12 sign that he's out there for 1 year. You see that? Conquering and to conquer, to get victory for those who will be the bride. I was thinking, maybe is this going to tie into the sign? No. It would appear this white horse, this first seal, has already begun. We're in it right now. He is out overcoming to get victory. And we see, in relation to the one that relates to 2017, the word victory shows up one time, that overcomes the world. Remember? That overcometh. It's the same word. To overcome, prevail, and get victory. And it's only found once in the entire Bible, in the New Testament. And it's the one that relates for the year 2017, which is the year that the sign showed up. And everybody who's been watching for the September 23rd, since the September 23rd sign, who hasn't what? See, guys, you see all this? Do you see how all this ties together? Watch this. You know where I'm going to go. Watch this. Right back to Luke. Remember how many people have been falling away that weren't continuously watching, that fell back asleep? Where are we going here? With the terrified, right? Through idea of causing to fall, some fell away, some continued to watch. They're gonna be taken out, right? Is there a relation to that? But I think this Revelation 12 sign, this could be what we're looking for here in Luke 11. This could be what's about to show up. Where were we? 29. If that is the sign of the Son of Man, which a lot of people call it the sign of the Son of Man, Jesus is going to be the sign, the 40-day sign. August 13th, 14th is the Revelation 12:1, the official seeing of that sign. Is that going to be it? If it's the sign of the Son of Man, that could be it. And the part of be not terrified is what comes later, is what comes when we're taken out. These angels that show up to get us and vanish us out of here. See how that goes? Now watch. Let's go to Mark and let's see what his says. It's completely different. It lines up with everything we've been talking about. Look at what he says here. The Pharisees and stuff come to him and they're tempting him. And what does he say? And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, why does this generation seek after a sign? Verily I say unto you, there shall no sign be given this generation. See, no, except the sign of. No sign shall be given. And what does he do? He walks away. He left. He entered the ship and he departed. He took off. Why? Because these guys aren't going to be given a sign. Look, it says it right here. They're not going to be given a sign. They're not going to know when. They will just have seen the kingdom coming. There'll be some alive and some that have already died. Those that have died here, those are the ones that died during the tribulation. You see, it all ties into this. Everything lines up. See, no sign of Jonah given to these guys. Now, here's something that confuses a lot of people. Why does it say unto this generation? It's always generation, generation, generation. Because it's our Psalms 90 and 10. Guys, as far as I know, nobody else on earth, or at least in the English-speaking language, has ever been able to explain what Psalms 90 and 10 a generation is. This channel can and has shown it to you guys many, many times. I know there are others. I'm not saying it's only me. Nothing is only for me. Don't get me wrong in saying that, all right? But in the English speaking, as far as I've heard, nobody's been able to understand this, which is why nobody explains the whole thing. They just say a generation. See, a generation is 70 years. But the generation that now, it's 70 years. Right now, today, it's the 70th anniversary, right? But it says, and if it be by reason of strength, 80 years, yet that strength is labor and sorrow, tribulation during those 10 years. And then about 6 months for soon, and then cut off for the time and times and half a time, which is Revelation 12:14. And then they fly away. This is 14 years. So when it says a generation is 70. But if by reason of strength, it could be 80, meaning they're going to go through sorrow and labor and tribulation, right? So the generation is from 70 to 80. Well, Luke is part of that generation. Luke is right now here in the 70th. Mark is going to be here still during these 10 years, during a portion of the 10 years. All right? And then Matthew is going to be here for the balance of the 10 years, the 3.5 years while the city and the street is being, the balance of the 10 years, that gets you to the point where the city and the street has been built, and then what happens? Jesus cuts himself off and they fly away. So this is the 10 years right here that Luke, the bride, is going to be a part of, only to the 70th. She's not going to no 71. The other two are going to be here for a portion of, and then till the end. And then when Jesus cuts himself off, and like Daniel 9, right, after those 3.5 years, and he cuts himself off because Satan is showing up, and these guys all fly away into the wilderness, right? The 10 years is done. None of his are going to be there for it. That's what this is talking about. It's the total of the 14 years. But when you hear speaking of generation, and people don't understand why it says this generation, how can Luke's group be gone if it's saying this generation? Where are we? Right? If it's saying this generation. Because Luke is still part of that generation to the 70th year. When it says it in Mark, it's because Mark is still in that generation, and they're going to be part of that generation that is going to experience now some of the tribulation, which we see from the 70 to the 80. Right? It's about to begin. It's going to begin in the 70th. And then when we come to Matthew, which is it for Matthew? Is it 12? Yeah. When we go to Matthew 12, let's see what it says about the sign of Jonah for Matthew 12. Look what it says. It's different. But he answered and said unto them, An evil and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, and there shall no sign be given it again except the sign of the prophet Jonah. But it's not the same one that Luke had. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be. This relates to the feasts, the fall feasts. This is what it relates to. There's 4 days in between one of those feasts? This is when he's going to take them out, when it's the end of that generation, the end of the 80 generation. See, they all have spoken slightly different, all relating to Jonah. All relating to the piece that we're talking about here. With Jonah. Jonah being the dove. Right? We can go to John 1 real quick. Right? What did John see? Where is it? Right? That he should, and I knew him not, but that he should be made manifest. Rendered apparent. Remember, light. Shining, rendered apparent. Let's keep following the word definition. To shine, light. This is all from being made manifest. And John bare record saying, I saw the Spirit descending from heaven like a dove. It's the name of Jonah. A pigeon, a dove. And the 40-day count lands, you guys will have to watch the previous video, lands on tabernacles 40 days later, which is revealed from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Do you see what I'm saying? Without understanding who the books are speaking to, we can't understand this stuff, guys. We need to understand who the books are speaking to. It helps if you understand that the tribulation is 14 years, and you can understand that Psalms 90 and 10 is explaining or is giving you the entirety of the tribulation, the last 14 years. Isn't that incredible? It's all being revealed. These books are opening up. They're being shown to us all throughout. From Genesis to Revelation. From Jacob and the 21 years to the Revelation 12 sign to the end of Revelation 12 to from the book of Psalms to Luke. It's all throughout, guys. So get ready because we are about to go. These next 10 days or so, guys, man, it's going to be hard to keep some focus. I'll tell you, it's going to be edge of our seat time, kind of pins and needles watching for what's happening, right? Guys, it's incredible. I will continue to do these teachings. I am not going to stop. But like I said at the beginning, guys, I need your help. The ministry needs your help. We have more of these USBs for the 14-year operation. They're done. We just need to get them out. So we need your help. whether you can send through PayPal or whether you can mail something to us. Just we need help. We can't even pay everything. Like I said, it's not enough that comes into our household, and whether it's 10 days or whether it's not going to be 10 months, but whether it's months still to go, guys, please, I'm just asking. Like I said, I got to ask, otherwise nobody knows, and the ministry needs your help. All right? So with that, guys, man, God is good. God always provides, and we know the time that we are in, guys. The numbers are in, the count is in, it all lines up, and the time is now. So keep watching, keep praying, because the time is now. I was hoping to bring this up to end it, but it takes a while. So, all right, guys, I love you. With that, God bless you. God bless your families. Let's keep watching and praying and sharing with everybody we know. Time is short. God bless you. Bye-bye.